Hello and welcome to Hindustan Times. In the high altitude deserts of Ladakh, survival is never simple, neither for people nor for the wildlife that shares their land. When humans and predators collide, the story is often reduced to conflict. But what if the real story is coexistence? Messy, evolving, and deeply human. Today, we look beyond headlines into the lived reality of one of India's most complex conservation challenges, the relationship between people and brown bears in Zanskar, which I'm being told is one of the most remote areas of Ladakh. Now, Kirti Chavan is a conservationist who has spent over a decade working in some of India's most remote landscapes. He lived in Zanskar for about 7 years, studying brown bears and human wildlife conflict, focusing on practical ways of communities and wildlife to coexist. He's also a science educator and author specializing in bear conservation. Kriti, over to you.
Thank you so much. So one of the two things that you talked about is conservation is deeply human and it is quite complex, sometimes messy. So I will give you more about that, but let me just go through my presentation first. That will give an introduction to what I do and what challenges we face. So basically, my talk was designed around understanding bears and people. It's a first step towards mitigating human brown bear conflict. Now, human brown bear conflict. Now, talk about interactions. But we always have complex scenarios where there is people living in shared spaces with wildlife. For example, in central India, there are a lot of communities live with tigers. Now, in say Trans-Himalayan region, people share this habitat with snow leopards, brown bears, wolves. What is happening right now in Zanskar is very interesting, and to give you a background of how Zanskar is, it's a remote landscape, southern part of southwest of Ladakh. Uh, till a decade ago, Zanskar was almost unreachable. Now, people, you had to take an arduous journey to get to this place. Now, it's suddenly changing with rapid infrastructure development, roads connecting from various sides, from Himachal, from Leh, from Kargil. It's just become a hotbed for a lot of activity, political as well as commercial. But what's happening right now is we look at a challenge that is faced by both uh, predators and people. People talk about ask me why is there human and bear conflict there? Why? So there is a animals, humans and animals have always been interacting for centuries. We understood that interaction in various forms. One, the interaction could be positive. Sometimes it's negative, which we call as conflict. And often in today's time, this negative interaction is what gets highlighted more, where people think uh, animals are causing damage to livelihood, people's property, loss to uh, their crops, livestocks, and things like that. But why is this happening? In case of bears, now this is a species that I've been studying for last say 7 years. And there are a lot of interesting facets of why this is happening. So let's look at this conflict scenario through the lens of an animal first, and then we'll look at the people lens, human lens. So to tell you a story, there are quite a few bears in Zanskar, and there are a few that I've been studying very closely. Snowflake is one of this bear, the female bear that I've been studying, and I know her. I can identify her. I know where she sort of frequents. Uh, so this female bear in Zanskar, Snowflake, she has a specialized reproductive system. Now every bear has a specialized reproductive system. Just understand a scenario. A bear has sort of in its early spring, the female bear has sort of gone out and then mated with a male bear, and it's time she is pregnant, but not quite. They have a special system, a reproductive strategy, which is called having an embryonic diapause, where the female bear chooses to not get pregnant. So what happens is the embryo is not attached to the walls of the reproductive system. She can actually go through a automatic abortion if she does not put on enough weight. What happens is over the period of spring, summer till autumn, she has to ensure that she will put on a lot of weight. She has to consume and as many calories as possible to make sure her pregnancy is successful towards the winter end. And this is what is happening right now. Now, a lot of times when the bears are not able to find enough food in the mountains, they have come back. They're coming to human villages. They're coming to people's homes, breaking into the people's homes and uh, look for food. This is where my work begins. This interaction is usually looked at as a conflict scenario where an animal has come into the homes of people, into the human habitation, which poses a great risk for humans as well as bears. A lot of times, agitated people can attack bears, and they have. It could result in bears fatality of the bears. And on the other side, if a bear feels cornered, it's a large animal, and if it's cornered, feels threatened, there's a great chance that it's going to attack and cause injury or fatality to humans. So my work here is conserving or mitigating this conflict scenario. Unfortunately, it would have been easier if you have I had to take one side of an animal if I had to just take the side of the humans. But when you are in the conflict mitigation situation, you got to understand both stories of the both sides. You have to understand why the bear is doing what it's doing, and you have to understand why people are reacting the way they are reacting. So my work primarily involves around how do we keep the bears away from human habitation, keep people safe, and how do you keep make sure you put in enough deterrence that keeps bears and human at safe distance, so it helps both the species. Now this is a very classic example I give every time. This is in broad daylight. Usually most of those incidents that have happened in Zanskar where bears have broken into people's homes is in the cover of darkness. Here in broad daylight you can possibly see two bears on top of a building. Thankfully, this building was abandoned, and uh, there were three bears who managed to climb up the top of the roof because there was a ladder kept, a mother and two cubs. As the dawn broke, the sun came up. The mother hurried down the ladder, but while doing so, the ladder accidentally got toppled, and the two cubs got stuck on top of the building, to the house. There was a lot of commotion, chaos, and uh, the nearest help from the wildlife protection department was 240 kilometers away. So people just waited and watched what's going to happen. And bears are very intelligent and very good at problem solving. So what these two cubs did was they dug a hole on the roof, got onto the first floor of the house, broke the window, and ran out. That's the first cub that did it. The second cub was watching it, followed the same footsteps, and all of them were safe. Thankfully, there was no injury there, but not to the bears, not to the humans. But these situations are becoming more and more common now in Zanskar because of various reasons, and I'll come to those reasons. Those many of those could be just speculations, but yes, in-depth study is required. Sadly, bears are arguably the largest land predators of India, but they're not studied as much as, say, the other large predator like a tiger or the Asiatic lion. And there's a lot that we don't know, and a lot of understanding comes from studies carried out in, say, Europe or the other, well, say Canada, Alaska, these regions. Now this has become a very common sight. When I reached Zanskar in 2017, the understanding of the conflict, the intensity of the conflict, was shown through these images. And these are the images taken by me when I walked through about 80 villages, meeting 250 people who had direct interaction with bears. Their stories were very different and somehow very common in a way, wherein there has been frequent attempts of bears trying to break into the homes, but the interpretation of why that is happening has been very different. Almost every household had a different story, but this sort of tells us how desperate would this animal be to survive, and how desperate people are right now to cope with this sort of scenario. So I began my work first understanding why what is happening when the bears are breaking into people's homes. What are they targeting? What are they going after? Turns out they're mainly going after the kitchen stores, the ration kept in the kitchen. And interestingly, the bears knew what worked for them, what they needed. So for example, a kitchen store had meat stored there, and some sugar and rice stored there. They straight went for the sugar and rice because they have this understanding, which is right, that any food that's high on glycemic index is going to help them put on weight faster, especially the female bears. If they have to have a successful pregnancy in the winter time, they need to have enough fat reserves. If they don't, like I mentioned earlier, they would go through automatic abortion. So you can understand the desperation of the bear trying to acquire as many calories as they want. So in on the picture on the left, you can see we put up a sound alarm on the door. So if there's a forced entry, the alarm goes, and then picture on the right, you'll see the windows have been secured. Now there is a lot of trial and error that went through. We tried few things. So if you try 10 things, 4 or 5 of these ideas failed. Some worked, some didn't work. So it was a great learning. And the best part about it is we all were in it together. As I said, brown bears are least studied large predators of India. Also, they're very intelligent. They're not very linear in many ways. I could be wrong, but some biologists could probably predict a tiger's behavior in certain scenario. But to predict a bear's behavior, I think that's a tall ask, because they've got some sort of critical thinking going on. And no matter how many deterrents you keep in front of them, they eventually find a way to tackle it. So that was a great learning. We thought certain things that would work will keep the bears away, and bear just surprised us. For example, there's a very popular deterrent for large predators across India and everywhere in the world: the fox lights, the deterrent lights. These flashing lights sort of give an illusion of a motion. When an animal sees it, it feels there's a presence of a human, and it stays away. Works great for wolves, works great for snow leopards, and many other species in the plains, I would imagine. For the bears, it worked for a couple of years, and after a while, the bear figured out, oh, it's just light, and then it just started coming back again. Then we try to think the way the bear thinks, and then try to put some other sort of deterrence. For example, if the bears were going for food stored in the kitchen, we designed India's probably the first one of its kind bear-proof food storage container. Now, what it had, so instead of fighting bear strength to strength, we figured out, okay, what is it that the bear lacks? For example, if you have a normal bolt and you lock a gate, a door, a box, the bear will eventually figure out how to open the bolt unless you have the padlock of the actual lock being put, which is again inconvenient for people to use regularly. Here in this bear-proof food storage container, I designed a lock which requires you to use your two digits, a thumb and a finger, which the bear lacks. And that worked very well. And even till today, people have been asking for the bear-proof food storage container to save their food from the bears. Eventually, the idea was not just to save people's food items, but to make sure that bears are discouraged. For example, like I said, bears are intelligent creatures. They have a mechanism of energy calculation, as in like energy spent to get to a food source versus how much calories, how much benefit they're getting. So in an attempt, when they break into people's homes, they're not able to find food, and they go back. They do it again, they are not able to, they do it a few times, they realize this breaking into people's homes, it's a wasteful task, it's a waste of resource and my energy, and they eventually turn to a different alternative, which is, so we are mainly relying on the bear's intelligence to move away from breaking into people's homes. That's just one of the sort of deterrent that sort of worked very well in Zanskar. But deterrent is, like you say, a stopgap solution. We need a long-term solution where people need to be aware of why this is happening, and yes, bears are causing damage, and it's probably a nuisance to a certain extent, where you wake up in the morning, your window's broken, the door's broken, the rice and sugar is all spilled, and there's a bit of loss, or sometimes the sheep and goats taken, but we don't see how they're benefiting you. Okay? Because that's not in front of you. That's a background work that a bear does in the ecology. So you have to explain this to people. The mainstay, main source of livelihood for people in Zanskar is agriculture and livestock rearing. In terms of agriculture, is for their own consumption. They don't grow any cash crops. They grow barley, potatoes, and peas, and the main protein comes from the dairy for the locals. Now, if you look at the background image, you can see how barren the landscape is. There's minimal vegetation growing, but whatever vegetation is growing up there, it's a contribution of the bear. Bears are excellent excavators. When they dig for roots and shoots, they sort of turn the soil, they add nitrogen to the soil. That's called nutrient cycling. They disperse seed, and because of them, there is some sort of vegetation growing in the mountains. Not just the bears, I would say there are other smaller species like the marmots and the wolves as well. But the area that a bear can cover, the marmots can't. So there's a huge contribution. So if there's no vegetation in the mountain, the people will not have anything to feed their livestock, which again hampers their own livelihood. So it's a circle. So these education and awareness programs sort of help people understand and be a little less negative about bear presence in the region. A lot of time has to be spent talking to children as well, because ultimately they are the future. If they don't appreciate and they don't understand the importance of so many important animals around there, which play an important role in maintaining ecological integrity of the region, then you fail the purpose. So we a lot of interaction with children at schools, younger, from smaller age to almost senior secondary level children, where everywhere we have interacted with children, there has always been one. Children have always been very curious about all animals. I was surprised they were more curious about bears than snow leopards, because obviously a snow leopard is more charismatic and there's a lot of enigma around it. Bears, however, is a new phenomena. Why? There could be various reasons to that, but yes, 20 years ago this was never happening in Zanskar. It's been happening now. So it is all the intensity of the frequency of these incidents have shot up in last 10 years, and it's growing. So children basically always wanted to know, how do you keep be safe from the bears? If I come across a bear, how do I protect myself? So I think that was very very fascinating and also concerning, worrying, because the first thing that the bears could associate, children could associate themselves when they think of bear, is their own safety, which is fair because bears are very very powerful. They could attack people, and in other countries that's happened. So when I talk about, I give them examples about how to keep safe, and there are basically two simple rules. Brown bears are far safer than the black bears, although maintaining distance is the key. So I gave them example of my own interaction with bears. My work involved me going in the mountains alone a lot of time, studying, surveying the landscape. So I gave them this example. In one village, I had camped outside the village area, and people had told me bears frequent this area, so be careful at night. And I said, yes, I'm prepared. And as the night came out, I saw something about 30 feet from my tent. I had a high powered torch beam, and I flashed the light. I could see the two eyes reflecting the line back. I wasn't able to understand what that is. It looked like some large animal. It could have been a cattle as well. So I clicked a picture with my phone, and then later I tried to correct it because it's too dark. I could not see anything. I'm not sure if you can see what's going on here. As I corrected my picture, it adjusted its contrast and brightness, and I realized here, right there, 30 feet from my tent, there's a bear just sitting and looking at me. So this bear was very curious. Obviously, I was no threat to the bear, and bear didn't give any signs that it's going to be a threat to me. It was just very curious. It's just a curious animal saying, "Okay, what is this green tent doing in my area?" And then it just sat there for an hour. I went back to my tent, came back after 45 minutes, flashed the light. The bear is still there. Then I see it going passing away. Absolute safe scenario. Now, I'm not posing any threat. There's a great distance between me and the bear, and there is nothing that we are competing for. Vis-a-vis, here's another example. I was again in another valley, far remote, and just sorry, so we already went to the next screen. So I killed the suspense. Just so on top of the ridge, I saw a blue sheep. It's a wild ungulate waiting there, looking towards me because I was at the stream bed. There was water source. So I realized, okay, the sheep probably wants to come down to drink the water. So I went to on the right side of the ridge, away from the sheep, so it feels comfortable. It can drink water and come back. I went up. I came back after an hour, and this is what I see. The blue sheep was dead right on that trail where I was standing. So the first thing in your mind, okay, there is a predator here which has killed this animal. Now this is the situation that I don't want to be in. If there could be two things, a snow leopard would have killed it, or a bear could have killed it. Well, I knew both these animals frequented this valley. If the snow leopard had killed, which it did, because you can, when I look closely, it was a very clear kill, like a big cat killing a animal with a jugular bite. If a bear would have killed, it would have been a messy affair, but it would have mauled the blue sheep badly. But at that time, I knew no person should be around that. Even if there is a snow leopard, a snow leopard has killed this blue sheep, a bear around that area would try to get to the carcass and challenge me for the food. So this is not a scenario that you want to be in. And I immediately exited this place. So this is a camera. We have put a camera trap here, and a few days you can see a blurry photo of a snow leopard and a bear, exact same spot. So you have to know the animal, you have to know where you are, you have to know what situation is it. The best situation is never to be interacting with animals. So when you go out in the mountains, you have to be making sure your presence is felt. You announce your presence by making some sound. In my case, I have a whistle. If you are in a group, you clap and you talk. And as soon as the animals see you, they are going to go away. So these are the things that I talk about in my work, because interestingly, like I said, bears is a new phenomenon. 20, 30 years ago, people rarely seen bears, but they had always seen wolves and snow leopards coming into the village, taking their livestock. What has happened is, because of century old interaction with snow leopards and wolves, people had their local ways of dealing with these animals, or whichever, whatever it was. So, but for bears, people had no clue. There were only speculations and there were only stories, and so fascinating. So people said, since it's a very it was very unusual for people to see bears in the village, a lot of people interpreted that as a sign that the land spirits, the water spirits, or the spirits from the mountains are coming down in manifesting in form of a bear to come and punish them for their wrongdoings. And they pretty much understood their wrongdoings is not like they're going and thieving anywhere, but disrespecting nature. People are not respecting water sources anymore, throwing garbage. There's a lot of accumulated garbage around, which is again an attractant for the bears that come into the villages. So complexities of these levels have been there, and it still is super fun trying to navigate through these issues and try to help both bears and snow leopards. This is not the end of the talk. This was just a run through introduction of what I do, where I am, and what animals I work with. And so for now, if you have any questions, I can quickly answer them and continue with my narration.
Right. Firstly, Kirti, thank you so much for that presentation. Very informative. And as you said, Ladakh in itself is such a complex geography, and it probably brings in even more complex issues when it comes to nature surviving, be that in human form or animal form. But at the top of my head, I'm just wondering, Ladakh is also so famous for its fauna, and it has very various types of fauna. So, what made you choose brown bear particularly?
Uh, yes, no doubt. There are so many beautiful creatures. Even so, before coming, so I might digress. Because you said amazing fauna, there's also amazing insect life, which is still undocumented. And once while walking through the mountains, I came across a type of emerald wasp, and looked very different. I photographed it and I sent it to experts, and they said it's a new species because it's not been documented by science. So there's so much of scope to discover. Why bears is because I find them very, very amusing, uh, intelligent, uh, scary sometimes, and entertaining. I remember, so there is a, like I said, a great enigma about snow leopards, a majestic big cat. When we look at bears, how they interact with their environment, it's just blows your mind. For example, they know how to use tools. For example, what happened was, in one of the villages, a bear got into a livestock corral, a big wall structure where a lot of sheep and goat were kept. So bear got inside to kill one of the sheep, and there was a lot of commotion and people gathered all around the enclosure to see. And the bear was scared. It wanted to climb out, it could not. So what it did was it grabbed one sheep, nailed it on the ground. It tried to grab another sheep and tried to make a pyramid out of it and climb on top of them and to come out of it. So in many ways, they are also very human, if you come to think of it. And like the problem solving skills, the deterrent lights that we kept. Um, um, in one of the schools in Zanskar, we kept these deterrent lights because this bear were coming, and it was there's one bear particularly. He was always coming and breaking that school kitchen store and stealing the ration. So we kept the deterrent light, and for 2 months, no incident. Uh, Incidentally, there was a very senior conservationist and who had come to review my work. It was a very important day, and I thought I will bring him to that school and show how successful this mitigation has worked, and how like people have come on conservation side, because the school principal also was very happy. He said, yes, I will help you in conservation. So imagine I get this senior scientist to this school. We step out of the vehicle, and the principal comes running to me and says, I'm fed up of this bear. I don't want this bear here anymore. Because the night before, the bear came, broke the window, then he came to the deterrent light spot, and he left a massive poop there and went away, as if giving me a message. So at times you see, you cannot predict the bears. They are so fascinating, and I could just keep telling you stories after stories. But this attribute of bears itself is what really fascinated me to work with. Also, like I told you, I failed so many times. I worked on certain deterrents. I knew what will work, and finally the bear outsmarted me.
Also, you kept referring to the fact how this phenomena of bears encroaching the villages is fairly new. I mean, encroaching, if you ask the bear, they would say that we have encroached their area for all you know. But why do you say that it's a recent phenomena? Where were these bears before?
So probably the bears were always there, and not probably, but they were there, but they were not in human habitation. So in my survey, I know when you talk to elders, people of between 70 to 80 years old age, they would say they probably only heard of a bear, or they saw one bear once far up in the mountains. This was the normal scenario back in the day, because probably there was enough natural food out there in the mountains. With climate change, what could have happened is there could be a massive change in the vegetation pattern, the wild vegetation pattern, and bears are not getting their natural food in abundance or in the way it should be available. Hence, they try to find an alternative. Now, why just suddenly come to human villages? For example, if if you're walking, you're on a trek, and you exhausted all your food supply, you know, after walking 5 kilometers in the forest, you might find apricot, you might find apples or something to eat. But here, just a kilometer away, there is a farmland. You would think, yes, when you have some an easy access to food here, why would I spend my energy walking 10 kilometers where I can have the same returns in a kilometer range walk? Maybe the bears also think exactly like humans, or some other animals. Like I'm not sure if you heard about the sugarcane leopards in Maharashtra, where they have habituated staying in sugarcane farms, because they don't have to hold on to the sugarcane for long periods of time. So for example,
We
uh,
seem to have lost. All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, great, please
I can.
continue.
So should I go back or just continue?
No, no, you can continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. So similarly, what happened was, uh, like the changes I talk about in the landscape. Suppose a bear 100 years ago came to the village, and he decided to break into someone's house. It was not possible for the bear to break into people's homes, because the homes were designed in that particular manner. Old architecture, Ladakhi homes were really tall, and the first floor was always for the cattle with a really small window, and people lived on the first floor. Again, small windows, to keep the home warm. Now that has changed. Why it has changed, that also has a reason, but I'll just tell you now. What has changed is people don't have those kind of homes. Most houses are one floor with big
Hmm.
glass window. All that the bear has to do is to give one push and the glass window is broken and he's inside. So if you made it easier that way for the bear to come, it has, in bear's world. Now look how, move away from a human centric point of view to bear's point of view. For him, in a natural world, this is what it does. There's food available, it has to go get it. You have seen some videos from some European countries. You will see a bear taking over a dead carcass from pack of wolves. It will fight the wolves and take it because that's what it's designed to do. Sometimes the wolves will take the food from the bear. In Ladakh as well, for example, a snow leopard kills a ibex or a blue sheep, you'll see pack of wolves coming and maybe taking the kill away. So that's a natural order. So bear doesn't understand that as an anomaly. That's
Hmm.
bear being a bear. We see that as how is this happening? This is an anomaly. This is a nuisance. It's actually coming in at our doorsteps and breaking and taking our food away. I also have started work in Himachal Pradesh, Lahore region, where the problems are different. Now, bears are not interested in breaking into people's homes because they have more exciting options out in the garden, in the agricultural field. Iceberg lettuce being grown now, and there's cash crops, and there is apples and stuff like that. So it's got enough there. Again, say 50 years ago or maybe more, bears were not coming into agriculture fields in Lahore because they were growing what Zanskar is grow, which is barley, peas. The bears don't want to eat that. Now, agriculture pattern change in Lahore when they started growing cash crops. That's when the incidence of bears raiding the agricultural fields went up. And now the problem is so huge in Lahore. Every season there is bears raiding the apples, the iceberg lettuce, and things like that. People come and tell me, "Oh, but if the bear eats few apples, we don't mind, but it just destroys the tree." Now, that is a human perspective. When you go to a bear's perspective, that's how the nature designed it. That it should not just feed itself, but it should feed other creatures. So in Lahore region, if the bear has sort of broken some branches and a lot of apples have fallen off, it feeds other animals as well. So that's a design of a bear. It will eat 10 apples, five will be on the ground for the insects or the musk deer or other ungulates that will be passing by. So by design, bear is doing nothing different than what it's supposed to do. But when you look at it through human's lens, it looks like a lot of nuisance. And that's not wrong because people are, if your livelihood is dependent on the crops that you're growing or the dairy that you've stored in your kitchen store or food items that are expensive, then it's a problem. So which is where you got to retrain people to sort of understand there is also give and take, but not ignore these losses. Try and intervene, mitigate. There has to be a compensation at the right time, and the compensation process has to be robust, efficient, and fast, and it has to be fair. Also, at the same time, you have to go back and tell people how you are getting benefit from the bear. Not bears not being there is going to be a problem for the diversity of the region. It will have an impact on your livestock and things like that.
Right. Katie, also what I'm hearing is that part of your job is also that of a mediator between the bear and the people, right? You were trying to understand the psyche of a bear and also how people have kind of adjusted to the nature around them. When you become that, you're also trying to innovate and find ways how you can protect the two, right? Have you faced any challenges when it comes to the villagers? Are they receptive to your ideas, or have you faced any kind of reluctance, so to say?
Uh, Thankfully, at least in Zanskar, that's not been the case. I did feel there is a lot more reluctance from in the region of Lahore because obviously the losses are greater. The if you lose your entire agriculture produce of the season, it's a big impact. So the way to approach that is to like I said, be a neutral person. You can't be a bear person, nor can you be people person. Then you look at just livelihood, and you become a livelihood person. Then you talk about how do you improve your livelihood. If I cannot compensate, if you're not getting compensation here in this particular whatever system, you introduce new livelihood option. Like in Lahore, we've tried out. Um, uh, Not it's not a new livelihood option, but reviving a lost tradition of Lahori knitting. So women usually are at the forefront of these losses. Women are more impacted by, say, depredation by wildlife, because they're so connected with so suppose they're the ones raiding the sheep and goat. They're more connected when loss is felt more, but a man would actually just think in monetary terms, most likely, not generalizing. Okay, I've lost a cattle worth 20,000 rupees, but a woman, for the woman, it's more than 20,000 rupees. You understand? So you sort of get women to a platform where they can start their livelihood not dependent on just one avenue, but multiple avenues. But yes, the challenges has been, why should they shift? Why can't you just catch the bear and leave it somewhere else? That's when you have to spend more time educating them that these things are not possible. For example, they say, catch the bear, leave somewhere else, but when leave where? Another village is going to have a problem. Plus, if a bear moves from its own area, and a new bear comes in who doesn't understand the system around this village, might end up creating more problem than this bear who was already probably grown up around here, knowing what to avoid and want to intervene. So these are the challenges that people face. And then we have to understand people have their own mechanisms to keep the bears away. For example, people said maybe we'll put some barbed wires to keep the bears away. So to give you an example, you've got to understand the bear biology as well. So for example, I don't have a barbed wire, but let's take these fairy lights, for example. If these were the barbed wires, and you would imagine if the bear is going to hold it and try to pull it, it's going to get hurt. Yes, because it has got soft pads. But what we don't understand, that's not how the bear tackles barbed wires or sharp object. It has claws. So I've just kept this example as a claw. Now, what the bear is going to do is not going to grab this with its soft pad, but with its claws, we don't have minimal impact, and just pull this entire thing back, and your entire system of your barbed wire fencing is gone. Bears are excellent at sort of finding solutions like this. So they've known to be tackling a lot of these deterrents, and they fail. So a lot of people use firecrackers. So again, just the way the deterrent lights didn't work for me in many places, firecrackers also stopped being effective after some time. So people start, when you throw firecracker, the bear, it's afraid, it runs away. The night after it comes back again, you do the same, it is less afraid. A month later, you throw firecrackers and nothing happens. So it's all about what deterrent and when to use it, very crucial. There's a very interesting thing. What worked in one region may not work in another region. Again, where and how you use it. A sound alarm that worked very well in Zanskar, which I was very confident would work in Lahore, didn't work because the way it was used. Now, sound alarm is to drive the bear away. You see a bear approaching the village, you have to be active. You have to be out there in the field and raise the alarm, and the bear probably hears it and possibly gets disturbed and runs away. I heard when I distributed sound alarms in one of the village in Lahore, I got to know that it didn't work because the bear was actually very aggressive. You go and understand what exactly happened is this was used when the bear was already in the village, okay, in the farmland, and then you surround the bear with sound alarms. It's going to aggravate and make the bear more angry, very dangerous. So there's a lot of these things that you have to explain, and it's not just one time. You have to keep working with the communities again. on a long-term scale. In my description, I said conservation is a slow process, and mitigation even slower. And you have to have faith in the community. You have to have faith in your ideas, and be adaptive to change when you need to change those. I hope I didn't digress
Absolutely.
too much.
No, 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 not at all. Very interesting talk and so much to think about. And I hope our viewers take that away as one of the most important things from this presentation. Neeti Chavan, conservation biologist, thank you so much for joining us on HT and for this
Thank,
very interesting talk.
thank you so much.